Hi, I'm Dr. Steve Hassan, and welcome to my live stream. It is Wednesday, August 13th, 2025. It's 3 p.m. Eastern. We're live streaming to multiple platforms today, Substack, Instagram, um, YouTube. I can't think what else. I don't know if we're doing Facebook. Anyway, welcome. And I want to start today's live stream just saying Epstein files, Epstein files, Epstein files. And for many of the MAGA faithful, I think they're catching on that Trump is just trying his best to distract us with all kinds of extreme other things to divert our attention. But I think the critical thing to stay with is understanding that so many people got involved in supporting Donald Trump because they believed that he was going to clear out the swamp and he was going to expose the deep state that was supposedly all of the Democrats. And what's happened is there's so much information, so many former victims of Trump and Epstein speaking out that a lot of the pundits have been speaking out. And it's really key for so many millions of people to understand this technique that Trump has employed from the beginning about distracting people and overloading them with extreme statements and policies, one after the next, after the next, after the next. And unfortunately, since he took office, he's been implementing Heritage Foundation Project 2025 and putting uniquely unqualified people in the highest positions of authority because they'll swear loyalty to him and not follow the Constitution or the rule of law or operate with their conscience or integrity. And interestingly, Trump fired his IRS commissioner that he appointed because the information I received was that the IRS commissioner was told to turn over IRS data to immigration authorities to be used to go after people, and he refused. So he put someone in power who is going to do exactly what he's told or else. And it's just so obvious once you understand the mind control techniques that Trump has been employing on all Americans, it loses its power. And I want to state categorically again, people think Trump is the mastermind and he's brilliant and he's playing five-dimensional chess. The guy's, in the words of John Bolton, who worked for him, the guy's a moron and he's uneducated and he'll do what he's told. I think one of the major voices telling him what to do is Susan Wiles, his chief of staff, who was a former paid lobbyist for Putin and Xi before she got involved with the 2016 election and with hacked data from Facebook, thanks to Cambridge Analytica and AI, got him elected the first time. And so the whole thesis of the Cult of Trump book that came out in 2019, and we released it in 2024 with a short forward by George Conway, has been validated. And I think I'm almost ready to write another book because I've learned so much since the book initially came out about other really bad actors. For example, I didn't talk about Musk and Thiel and Network State and Palantir and Bezos and the tech bros. And the New York Times did an article this past weekend quoting Greg Epstein's book Tech Agnostic, published by MIT Press. And if you haven't heard about the book, please subscribe to my Substack. Actually, I think you can come for free for a week or two. But watch and read the blog that and the interview I did with Greg Epstein on how, uh, from his point of view, these tech bros are the new world religion, with AI as a god and transhumanism and long-termism and accelerationism and crypto, and how they want to be bigger than governments, and that why they supported Trump is because Harris was going to put regulations on them and make them more accountable for their bad actions, and they didn't want any regulations. They're extreme libertarian-esque folks. But I would have also added China. I would have added the Mormons, the LDS, because they've been so deeply involved with right wing Trump issues forever. The Mooneyies were in bed with the Mormons as well. Um, and going back to the deep state, I just wanted to remind people, especially people who haven't heard my story before about how I got recruited into the Mooneyies in '74. Well, when I got out after a deprogramming in '76, I was a whistleblower for a congressional subcommittee investigations into KCIA activities in the US. And what this investigation found out was that some black ops people, talk about deep state, black ops CIA people set up the South Korean CIA. And the founder of the South Korean CIA used the Moonies as a proxy group to do counter brainwashing to North Korean brainwashing. And when Americans were protesting against the Vietnam War, they brought the Moonies to the US to operate on campuses to recruit students to be anti-communist and say we need this forceful approach to stop communism. That's when I got recruited. So I've been saying this for years. I feel like I was MK Ultra 2.0 or 3.0 because I was so indoctrinated. I would have died on command or killed on command. And many of my regulars have heard me say this before, but I was literally trained to die or kill on command. So, I know the mindset. And I was with Moon in the room with leaders when he said democracy is satanic. We have to infiltrate the government, and God wants a theocracy. And when we take power in America, we'll amend the Constitution. Get this. We'll amend the Constitution, make it a capital offense for people who violate our rules regarding the mass weddings. And at the time, I was so brainwashed, I thought it was a great idea because the Moonies needed to take over the world for God, or so I believed. And so many of the people in the cult of Trump are in cults, actual authoritarian cults where they think they're following God, but they're following a human who claims to be a prophet or an apostle, and that bite model authoritarian control measures are being used on them. Behavior, information, thought, and emotional control is being used on them. And I'll just add, as a fielding scholar at the Institute for Social Innovation, we've now instituted a new survey that I'm asking people to fill out, and you don't have to be a former member to fill it out. Go to bitemodel.com, and it's a scientific study. We're trying to provide scientifically validated criteria of how authoritarian a group is. And will give you a number on the influence continuum. A low number is healthy, and a high number is very authoritarian. I recently tried out my own survey on the Moonies when I was in it, and it came out to be 100% authoritarian mind control. And another feature, unlike my doctoral dissertation, another feature of the survey is to ask people if you were a fringe member or if you were rank and file or devotee or in leadership, because information varies where you are in the influence continuum. I'm going to be taking questions in a few more minutes, but I just want to say the latest news is Putin and Trump are supposedly going to meet in person in Alaska. And I just want to state categorically that all of my research showed that Trump has been in the pocket of Russia since, at least since 87, when he went there physically for the first time. And so all of this diversion that Obama is at fault and he's a traitor is just pure projection. It's Donald Trump who is the traitor, and all the people loyal to him are traitors to the American ideal, to the Constitution, to the rule of law, to the separation of church and state, to um, the checks and balances. And I found an old hat that I purchased back in 2015. I purchased this actually from John Oliver, the comedian, who, because he saw Trump's ascendancy, he was getting too popular, and he said, "Let's make Donald Trump again." And the whole episode was about the fact that he's an immigrant, and his real name isn't Trump at all, it's Drumpf. And as someone who studies psychology and information and psychological warfare, I'd like to suggest people start referring to Trump as Drumpf instead of Trump. And then maybe some people will get curious and find out that that's the origin of why we're using Drumpf. And I also want to thank Evelyn Diaz Perez, Padilla rather, who I interviewed for my podcast this week. She's a Hispanic political consultant who taught me, and hopefully, if you listen to the podcast or watch the video on my YouTube channel, you'll understand most Hispanics don't like the term Latinx. Like only 1.8% of Hispanics like that term. Most Hispanics, she explains, don't think of themselves as brown or black. They think of themselves as white. Likewise, many Hispanics have escaped left wing authoritarian dictatorships, and for them, the term progressives, which I confess I've been using, it triggers authoritarian dictatorship. So she was recommending using pro democracy as a term instead of left, right, or Democrat or Republican. And to really get down in real life to relationships with people and helping them to know they're not alone and that, we've been, our whole way of life is going asunder and we need to have peaceful protests, big ones, not violent, peaceful. And for those who know my work, I'm a love guy. I say love is stronger than mind control. I have love on this side. Unconditional love is the healthy. Conditional love will love you if you do what we tell you. Otherwise, we'll hate you and come after you. We really need to exert a huge amount of public outcry. And what Trump is doing now with the National Guard, federalizing Washington, D.C., is just grooming Americans to expect this in all democratic cities around the country. And I don't know if you saw a short video I made, but I was saying with the National Guard in DC that no media is reporting one of the major reasons I believe Trump is saying that Washington D.C. is so overrun with crime uh, uh, is for Putin's sake and Xi's sake. And when I say this, people go, "Why? What are you talking about, Steve?" And I say, because Putin and Xi know their people don't want to live under authoritarian dictatorship. They've been looking to the US and they want the president of the United States to say how horrible the US is. They want their people to know that America allows people with assault rifles to go into churches or buildings and shoot people. Because in China or Russia, you can't own an assault rifle or a handgun, even. Unless you're in the military or the official police, you'll go to jail. Americans have been so indoctrinated into a false belief because of our enemies wanting to tear us asunder. And nothing would please Putin and Xi more than Americans killing Americans. They want us to have a civil war. And I say, peace, 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 peaceful protest. People need to have a voice. And I've also said in previous times, people, when they're faced with, they fight, they flee, fight, flight, freeze, or fawn are the four basic strategies. And I'm for fighting, but not violently. Because if we're violent, then it gives them a reason to escalate the force and put the police and the military all over the place. And fawning is caving in to do what they want. And I'm just seeing ever increasing fawning, not because people believe in Trump, but because they want to keep their head down and they don't want to be hassled. And me, I don't know. I've lived 49 years outing, billionaire authoritarian cults and cult leaders. I'm not going to stop now. I'm thinking about my next book. Oh, we just published a Spanish edition of Combating Cult Mind Control. It's now out in paperback on Amazon. It'll be out shortly in Barnes and Nobles and other booksellers, and then we'll get a digital copy going. And I just want to teach. I want to share my expertise of almost five full decades. Oh, and I wanted to mention I'm doing a live talk in person at a law school in Springfield, Massachusetts tomorrow night, Thursday, the 14th, 6 to 8:30. You have to register at mobilize.us. Donna Fellows is the person who invited me. It'll be Zoom, and we plan to live stream at least to YouTube for those who aren't registered. And of course, we'll record it as well. I want to get down to really more educational stuff since most people have not made the effort to read The Cult of Trump and digest the key concepts. I want to try to explain them, and I want to talk about how to effectively interact with people who have been Trump supporters. And there's a methodology, and it isn't political debate, and it's not a content and fact, joust. It's about asking questions in a thoughtful, respectful way that empowers the person to stop and think and to reflect and to get in touch with their real values and their hopes and dreams for the future, especially if they have children or grandchildren. And by the way, if anyone is listening to this and you're retired and you have writing skills or you have PR skills or social media skills and want to help us at Freedom of Mind, let us know. Email us at center@freedomofmind.com. Anyway, I've been ranting for enough time, and I want to leave a lot of time in this hour for folks to ask questions. And I'd be happy to start answering. And until we get some questions, I'll continue to just talk about. Uh, oh, Nancy, thank you for Super Chat. You've been a great supporter. You're a regular. I really appreciate you. Um, I want to just talk about Netanyahu. When people are asking me about Netanyahu, I said I put him in the cult of Trump as part of the cult of Trump. And he's in bed with Trump and Putin. And people don't understand that a million Russian Jews moved to Israel and kept listening to Russian propaganda stuff. And they grew up in authoritarianism. They don't understand what Americans have in our DNA, that we expect freedom. We expect democracy and rule of law and habeas corpus. Cami, would you put up the question again? Sorry, I kept going. Let's see. Louisiana, will you point me to where research hypnosis and brainwashing? I have read your book on mind control and undue influence and going through the Cult of Trump book now. I want to understand more. So, yes, I've done numerous short videos on hypnosis. I co authored two chapters in a clinical hypnotherapy textbook on the dark side of hypnosis. I believe there's still a 3 hour workshop I taught in 2012 for the International Society of Hypnosis in Bremen, Germany. And what people need to understand is that hypnosis is not sleep. It's a state of altered consciousness featuring heightened concentration and imagination. But what's characteristic of trance is that your critical thinking, your meta and analytic mind is offline. So you're very susceptible to indoctrination into weird, crazy conspiracy beliefs when you're a hypnotic trance state. I'll also tell you that because I've been studying hypnosis since 1980 when I was trained by about NLP. I actually was an apprentice to John Grinder, the co-founder of NLP. Uh, NLP is based on the work of Milton Erickson, the psychiatrist. Milton Erickson consulted with the CIA for MK Ultra, by the way, and he came up with a conversational, process-oriented form of hypnosis. But he was a therapist with ethics and values, and that's what disillusioned me about NLP, is they were teaching it and they were just saying do what works without any care about ethics. And when I met Richard Bandler, one of the co-founders, the first 15 minutes, I said, this guy's a psychopath. Just by listening to how much fun he had manipulating people and the way he was talking. I even wrote some poems about him. But what I want to say is that the internet is rife with hypnosis. I see a UK stage hypnotist now doing a multi level marketing coaching regime where he's going to teach people how to be a coach and teach them hypnotic techniques. And I'm going nuts because I know how much it can be abused if someone isn't trained how to identify psychological issues and problems and properly help empower people to solve their own problems. And so I definitely am planning to do another book on hypnosis and a course on hypnosis. But as of today, there's no law against hypnotizing people. And especially if you don't use the word hypnosis, if you use the word visualization or creative imagination or some other term or meditation, but you have to watch what is actually being done, not listen to the words, but what is actually being done and see the effects and whether or not people are feeling more grounded and exercising good consumer critical thinking or just following along. And I also want to say doom scrolling is a phenomenon of hypnotic trance where you lose time. You get on an app, and 2 hours later, you're like, what happened to 2 hours? You were in a trance. And so things that were being micro targeted at you based on your personal profile is getting inside your head. Sorry, Cami, put up something else. Let's see. Katrina on Substack asks, where do you think Trump plans to put the homeless? To be very clear, Trump was indoctrinated in his family into a cult of Norman Vincent Peale, of positive thinking and fake it till you make it, and think about people as um, predator or prey, and you're either a predator or a prey. And if you aren't the predator, you're going to be eaten by the predator. And so he, as a malignant narcissist, I cite chapter 3 of the Cult of Trump book for the characteristic profile of cult leaders. There's no empathy, there's no love. People are objects. And if it's inconvenient to see smelly people lying and sleeping on the street, you get rid of them. Seriously, it's awful. It's disgusting. And so we're in a lot of trouble because the economy is going to go down, down, down with these tariffs and the push towards crypto, which has no basis in reality unless it's grounded with strong financial institutions that want planetary survival, that want people to retire in 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So we're in a lot of trouble, folks, and a lot of MAGA supporters, they deliberately didn't have the Medicaid cuts come in until the midterms because they knew there would be millions of people going, I want to see a doctor, I'm ill, and being told, sorry, we've cut your benefits. Well, know that your benefits have been cut now and get angry, get upset. And if there are opportunities to go to town halls with GOP politicians, please go and please message that you want your benefits. So many of advanced civilizations, it's a given they're going to give you free health care, single payer health care. Not in the US. And all this anti vaccination stuff is so dangerous and defunding people who are experts at pandemics as if we're not going to have another pandemic. Please. It's just defunding the EPA. So we really need to understand it's your mind. You should control it. Understand that we're human beings, we're embodied minds, and that we're not meant to be in digital space. Virtual reality is not reality. Having a love with an android is not the same, never will be the same. And as a therapist, I can tell you, working in person is so superior to meeting online. It's not even close. Why? Because our brain is picking up so much information unconsciously. Oh, thank you, Louisiana, for the super chat. Appreciate you. Yes, my pleasure for answering your questions. At heart, I love to teach, and that's why I have courses for anybody to take. If you go to freedomonline.com and to learn, I have CME courses for psychiatrists, CEUs for psychologists, social workers, and counselors. And we need to educate ourselves. And this is another thing that really pisses me off, that the media has deliberately censored mental health professionals, and especially mental health professionals who are experts in brainwashing and mind control. The US government has never stated publicly that mind control even exists or brainwashing even exists. Don't you think that's a deep state kind of thing that nobody's said, yup, people can be radicalized and they can be made to do things that violate their own conscience and their own value system, as happened to me? They've never been honest about that. And I'm letting you know. We have many examples of this. Jim Jones had people kill their own children because they believed he was God on earth. Shinrikyo cult in Japan developed sarin gas and gassed thousands of Japanese citizens, thinking he was Jesus and Buddha. People need to get that human beings are social beings, we're emotional beings, and our brains can entrain with the people that we're hanging out with. Hang out with good people with morals. Let's see, Tuija, sorry for bungling your name. ICE is trying to recruit young 18-year-olds directly from the school. As a psychologist, I think this can be very traumatic work. Yeah, and the military is trying to recruit people, 18-year-olds, because they're going to use the military against American citizens, unfortunately. That's how it's looking. And I was always hoping the military as an institution would really stay true to their oath to the Constitution. And anyone who exerted any behavior that Trump didn't like, he's been firing them. He got rid of the inspector generals, who are the judges of military tribunals. He fired a four-star general recently. But we really have to look in the mirror and say we're at an existential moment, and are we going to do the right thing and stand up against tyranny, or are we going to cave as many Germans did to Hitler? And when people say don't compare Trump with Hitler, I'm absolutely comparing Trump with Hitler. Let's see, Richard, thank you for becoming a channel member. Yeah, my team, I pay my team. They deserve much more than I can afford to pay them. And my salary is minimal. I've been funding my own efforts and activism, and I need more resources because the time is critical and I want to do more. I want to message more. And having individual clients, it's satisfying to help a specific family. But I want to develop methods to help millions of people. And that involves courses and trainings for activists who want to learn how to be effective freedom of mind uplifters. And it's not mystical, people. And former members have stories to tell. So, like, get over your shame and embarrassment and share your stories. Let's see. Patricia Wren on Substack asks, are many senators and SC justices members of Opus Dei? Opus Dei is one of the main cults in the cult of Trump. See Chapter 7. William Barr, the Attorney General, was on the board of directors of Opus Dei in DC. And Opus Dei was involved with Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society and the hacking of our Supreme Court. And Opus Dei was involved with Heritage Foundation Project 2025. And come to my website, come to my Substack, and start reading my blogs and see the links. The most important book that you should read is Opus by UK financial journalist Gareth Gore. It's really a must read if you're an activist to understand these were people who thought Pope Francis and the current Pope are satanic because they're talking, Jesus language, of love and service and protect the immigrants and help the poor and the sick. They want power. They want to take over the government. They want control. They took over a Spanish bank and were using billions of dollars to fund their cult activities. To answer your question, I don't know. I should have said that first. I don't know names of specific senators and such. I can tell you a quick anecdote, though. My home newspaper, the Boston Globe, for decades, I came to Boston from New York City to go to BU. And the Boston Globe did a profile on me and quoted me every time there was a cult story. And then there was a 10-year period where they didn't do any cult stories. And then a friend of mine who works at the Globe said, Steve, the editor's Opus Dei. And I went, oh, that's why. And people message us saying, Steve, you should be on MSNBC. You should be on CNN. And I'm like, I'd love to, but they're not inviting me. Used to be on, excuse me, I used to be on all the time, but there's like this veil, and I want to say I'm blacklisted, but I can't prove that. But people are afraid to have the expert on brainwashing and mind control, the guy who wrote The Cult of Trump for Simon and Schuster, on, because it's too threatening to their ability to keep people ignorant, confused, anxious, and dependent. Because I'm trying to lift people up, empower them, realize they have a voice and their voice matters. And the authoritarians of the world do not want someone like me to have a more powerful voice. And that's why I'm counting on these live streams to get more people who've never heard of me to start reading Combating Cult Mind Control, reading Freedom of Mind, which is my book from 2013 on how to help a loved one involved with a destructive cult or relationship. The Understanding Cults workbook was developed to support and augment my courses. So I'm just generating a lot of content. We have fascinating interviews that I think are really important, and we have really great, interesting stuff that you're not going to hear in other channels. So check us out. Randy Brewer, Milgram's experiments, right-wing news sources, authority figures in government, propaganda loop, including church figures, make a highly effective propaganda loop. Yes. So I teach three social psychology experiments regularly: the Ash Conformity Study, the Milgram Obedience Study, and the Zimbardo Prison Study. I believe I have interviews with Philip Zimbardo, former president of the APA. Um, there's a great movie called The Experimenter, if you haven't watched it, about Stanley Milgram. Highly recommend it. Good film on Phil Zimbardo, the Zimbardo prison experiment. And so understand we now live in a world of highly sophisticated knowledge of neuroscience, and now AI is able to analyze and micro target our minds. And with deep fake technology, they can literally like know my mother's image and my dad's image, etc. And they can take eyes or eyebrows or nose or mouths and put them on AIs. And unless I'm attuned, I just automatically trust these AIs. And it's like, oh, they've profiled me. And the last I heard, there's 5,000 data points on every voting American. 5,000. And they can predict what you're going to like, what you're not going to like, what you're going to share. And they are measuring where your eyes are going. They're measuring how long you're staying on every video that you're watching. And it's all getting compiled in the dark web and available for purchase. This is the world we're living in. And so, you know, we can't close our eyes and hope for the best. We have to understand who are the bad actors, what are they after, and we need to really know our values and know ourselves. And when bullshit is coming our way, we need to label it as BS. You know, this stuff about accusing Obama of being a traitor, Trump's just projecting. He's the real traitor. He's the one in bed with Putin, and the Russians bailed him out of so many failed businesses. This whole gambling casino was bailed out by Russian oligarchs. Do your homework. Talk to former intelligence people who studied Russia. Read Active Measures. Listen to Yuri Shvets and Craig Unger, who wrote several books on the Russian connection with Trump. Yeah, someone else was asking a question. Let's see. Graham Moses on Substack asks, what are your thoughts on Ernest Holm and Science of Mind? I don't know what Ernest Holm is. And science of mind, I know it, but I can't tell you off the top of my head. But I can tell you that any group can be analyzed now in terms of how healthy they are and how unhealthy they are by using my influence continuum. Healthy groups give informed consent. They don't lie about their past, they don't lie about their leadership and the history. They respect people's conscience, they respect people's values. They don't threaten you if you want to leave. And check out the bite model. This is the full thing that I did my dissertation on. We've gotten it down to 20 questions that we think will be sufficient. And we're doing a study right now on bitemodel.com with a 40 question bite model survey. And we want to compare and get feedback from people to find out if it's really helpful to them. Because I can tell you since 1985, when I first wrote about behavior, information, thought, and emotional control, people would read it, look at the list, and they'd say, oh, I'm in a cult. I was born into a Christian cult, or the JWs, or the Mormons, or whatever, and they'd leave. So going through the long list was very effective at helping people reality test for themselves. But if we can get it down to 20 questions that help people, we have a tool that can then be used in courts of law around the world. I'm not holding my breath for the United States courts anymore until we can get expand the Supreme Court or create term limits or do something where there are justices that aren't just doing what they're told by the Federalist Society and others, and get people who are really concerned about justice and freedom and the Constitution. But in The Hague and in the EU and in Canada and Australia, New Zealand, and other countries, I want to provide a real scientific foundation to evaluate brainwashing and mind control and using trafficking law that exists. Um, any other questions coming up? Let's see. Glass Official on Instagram asks, when we begin these conversations from a place of true caring, our approach becomes much more about asking to understand rather than proving them wrong. Exactly. This is not about facts and logic and winning an argument. This is about reaching out to a fellow human being with genuine curiosity and respect and asking them to please explain their journey. What was their first memory of Donald Trump? How did they react when they first listened to him speak? And when I ask that question, and I'm not judging, people say the first time I saw him, oh, it was on The Apprentice. And I'd say, okay, do you remember your first thought or your first feeling? Yeah, I thought he was an asshole, or I thought he was an arrogant prick. And I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. So tell me, walk me through your journey of how you came to vote for Donald Trump. I really would like to understand it. Were there movies you watched? Were there influencers? Was it a Joe Rogan? Or was it Alex Jones? Or like, how were you influenced? But the goal is to get them to reflect and think. Would I have chosen to vote for Donald Trump if I knew I would be losing my Medicaid, or if I knew my family would be captured on the street and put into a detention center or deported to El Salvador? Many people are like, no way would I have voted for him. And when you're coming out of a mind control cult, as I did in 76, I was ashamed. I was embarrassed. I felt like I was stupid because so many from my family and friends told me it was a cult. The Mooneyies were a cult and that Moon wasn't the Messiah. But I couldn't hear it because I was trained with phobias. I was trained to do thought stopping. Cami, there was another question that popped in. Crypto is definitely not money. Gold isn't money either. Yeah, but I wouldn't equate crypto with gold because gold is a substance and crypto is made up. I've always called it a pyramid scam. The people who've made Bitcoin, we still are not sure 100% who created it. There's some Japanese name, but that person doesn't exist. And they make money by recruiting more people to believe in the multi level marketing scam. And the people at the top are the ones who make all the money, and everyone else loses. Because I've been helping people out of MLMs for 40 years now. Amway, Herbalife, just to name a couple. And check out my Substack and read my interviews with former MLM people and experts. Let's see, Niraj, I just like how many times in different fields I've listened to an expert say, I've asked AI a question and this is the answer. The only experts we have are ourselves and experts. Thank you for that comment. We people need to understand large language models. This is just averaging information, and a lot of it's disinformation. Wikipedia is filled with propaganda and disinformation. We know that Russia hacked all the AI platforms a few more months ago with Russian propaganda. And there's been a systematic assault on experts, science, and democratic institutions. I wrote about this in The Cult of Trump. It's called Fourth Generation Psychological Warfare. It was first written up by William Lind, an American military strategist. He paired up with Paul Weyrich of the Christian Right. Michael Flynn is involved, who did fourth generation and fifth generation psychological warfare, and QAnon was a psyop. If you can get a society to distrust experts, to distrust the scientific method, and distrust institutions, you can take them over. You can install a dictatorship because people will be confused and not know who to turn to. So let me say categorically, stop listening to a million people telling you what's going on. Identify people with real credentials who've been studying a subject forever and check them out, the veracity of what they say. There should be no lies about their past. There should be none of their peer-reviewed journal articles are fraudulent because there are real experts and then there are bogus experts, people who hang out a shingle. Hey, I'm a cult expert too. And you find out they were never in a cult. You find out they have no mental health training. You ask them who they learned from, and they say, oh, I've read a lot. Like, run. Like, I was in a cult as a leader, got out. The top people who studied brainwashing in China I talked with, who encouraged me. Lewis West, Margaret Singer wrote the foreword to Combating. Dr. Lifton has done many interviews with me. I have the credentials. I have 2 masters and a PhD now. I've walked the walk and talked the talk and really evaluate because the media doesn't know how to discriminate. I can't tell you how many times, my assistant Jim will get a message. Um, hey, we need someone in 2 hours to give a quote, and I'm with clients, and it's like we Steve's not available till tomorrow, and they do a Google search or whatever, and they find whoever's willing to give a quote, and they don't know jack. They don't know what they're talking about. Find out what cult expert said that there is no cult of Trump and that I don't know what I'm talking about. Then you really know who to stay away from. So we need real people and real experts and good science. Let's see. How do we deal with people that have confused moral values because of the cult of Trump? I seen a guy sad that his brother-in-law was deported, but he still supported Trump. So what I want to explain is that human beings exist in a specific time and place. Like I'm talking to you live, and the past is my memory, and the future hasn't happened yet. And people need to understand just because you did something a year ago doesn't make it what you're believing now. And too many people blame the victim. They say to the person, you voted for Trump, you were stupid, and you got what you deserve. Wrong. People were deceived, they were tricked, and I don't know any human being that didn't fall for a deception, whether it was from someone selling a product or falling in love with someone who wasn't for real, or a corporation or a government. I don't know anyone. So be in the here and now. If the person had a loved one deported, sympathize, empathize, and welcome them to the resistance against Trump. That's what we're going to need to do. Build wide coalitions and welcome anyone who's having disillusionment now. Dr. Hassan, are you aware of journalist Zev Shalev's work? Yes. On the financial and espionage ties, especially Russia and Israel? Yes. Of Maxwell, Epstein-Trump, and international crime? Up, it went down before I finished reading it aloud. Yes, I am very familiar with him. I think I was on his show, but you're right. I should have him on. But there's so much. I mean, David K. Johnston is an expert on Trump, and Michael Wolff is an expert on Trump and Epstein. Craig Unger is an expert. I like Dave Troy a lot. I've been a colleague and friend of Dave Troy, who sought me out when he saw my MIT TEDx talk on his technology controlling your mind, and he had me do Dismantling QAnon with him and Jim Stewartson and Desiree Keene, and then another one on the psychology of dictatorship with Dr. Bandy Lee. A plug for Bandy Lee. She's a forensic psychiatrist. She did The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. That was 27 mental health experts. Then there was a 37 people experts. Now we have 50 in the much more dangerous case of Donald Trump. I'm actually in this edition. And I have interviews with Bandy Lee that go back many years. And her job is evaluating dangerous people. And she was banned by the media. And again, I say to you, we need independent journalism that's committed to supporting democratic values and human rights and rule of law. And everyone should look in the mirror and like check out your values. Is lying good, or is being honest the way to live? Seriously. There's so many people who lie because they see other people lying. It's like, they're doing it, so I should do it too. Wrong thinking. Be your own person. Yeah, there was another question, Cami. On Rise of Instagram asks, it is so clear. Also, though, after surviving and coming out of a cult, I know personally how deep this cult mindset can be. It's not their fault. They have been deeply, deeply what? Manipulated. Manipulated. Trust me, former members who've been in authoritarian cults, whether they were born in it or raised in it, or like me, recruited at age 19, we know what it's like to lose our identities and to be part of an authoritarian group that hurts us, isolates us from family and friends, undercuts our ability to grow and learn and be curious and change our mind. That's another thing. I want everyone to adopt the perspective that we don't know the truth with a capital T and be open to changing your mind if there are real facts. And by the way, there's no such thing as an alternative fact. It's called a lie. Real facts, Be open to changing your mind. When people say, "Hey Steve, I heard you say this or you wrote that and here's the evidence that shows that's not true." I review the evidence, and if the evidence is solid, I say thank you and I change my mind and I tell my followers, "I've changed my mind on this." My ego is not attached to my beliefs. Seriously, it's like we're just struggling as human beings to do the best we can. And I urge people to think about planetary survival. That should be the goal. And all these fossil fuel corporations like Coke and all these countries that are fossil fuel like Russia, they don't care that they're superheating our planet and destroying our climate and our habitat. And I say they're criminals. They're gonna kill tens of millions of people because their greed and their need for power. That's warped thinking. And guess who's going to have the most influence on the heads of these big countries and corporations? It's going to be their children and their families and their siblings because they have access. But these folks need to get educated on how to have a conversation or a series of conversations to help their loved one change their minds and change their course. This is really important. And there's so many people pitching apocalypse. These are the last days, and Jesus is coming back, so we don't need to care about the earth because God's going to remake the earth. Nonsense. People have been expecting Jesus' return for 2,000 years in their lifetime. And if you're buying into apocalyptic, last days ideology, say, I don't need to save because Jesus is coming any day, like, wake up, study history, study the scriptures, talk to real Bible scholars. Your work is so important, Stark, sweetheart. Thank you. Thank you for thanking me. I tell you that people who say your work has helped me, I read your book, I helped to rescue a loved one, it keeps me going. It keeps me empowered. It's a purpose for my life. Do I like to have fun too? Absolutely. I heard a great Mumford and Sons concert, by the way, last Saturday at Forest Hill Stadium in New York. They were phenomenal. It was the last concert of their tour. Just wonderful. Music, creativity, poetry, art, um, dancing. Do stuff that helps you be in your body. Play with puppies and cats and animals and babies. Ranting a lot. Let's see, Michael. Steve, your work is invaluable, and I thank you for all that you do to bring light to the subject. Can you put that back up, Kame? Your work has changed my view on many people and brought much understanding and calm in the storm. Thank you so much. And Michael, Cami says you're a regular, so thanks for coming on. And if everybody who comes on my live streams asks 5 of their contacts to come on the next live stream, we can actually grow my channel and my Substack substantially. And the more people who are willing to, give $5 a month for unlimited access, including special articles that are only on my Substack, not on my website or anywhere else, you will help us be more, to do more. We got only a few more minutes. Stark, can you please speak on how you feel about the true mental pathology of our current administration? Can we point out the true malignant narcissistic behavior in a way that will affect MAGA? Yes. If you haven't read The Cult of Trump, please do. Chapter 3. But here's the key. If you attack the group Trump, the policies, the ideology head on, you're going to activate the cult identity and they'll feel attacked and persecuted, and you're the enemy. What you do is you talk about someone else, another cult, a cult leader has malignant narcissism that you believe the person agrees is bad news. like Keith Raniere of Nexium, like Larry Ray of the Sarah Lawrence cult, like Jim Jones, like Hubbard of Scientology. And then you can talk about the criteria of malignant narcissism. I have a list, by the way, on freedomofmind.com under Undue Influence. You can download and print out the list. Take out the picture of Trump, it's at the top of the page. And the more you can teach your children about malignant narcissists and what to watch out for, you're going to be inoculating them from future predators and predatory organizations. But remember, attacking, condemning, calling names head on, counterproductive. When I was in the Mooneyies, if people pretended they were open to me recruiting them, they could have gotten me out so fast if they practiced the principles that I'm teaching. Seriously. But you have to understand, you have to think strategically. How can I ask this in a way that's going to empower the person to think for themselves? And get your head out of the persuasion mindset that I want to win points and get the person out. No, you're helping them to get themselves out, is what I teach. So we've done our hour. It's flown by. I want to thank my team, especially Cami, and give us feedback on the bytemodel.com survey. Do it, put stuff in the text box. Please support my Substack, Stephen Hassan, my YouTube channel, Dr. Stephen Hassan, and we'll see you, well, maybe tomorrow night. I'll be live streaming, or next Wednesday. Take care. Thanks so much.